This guide has been inspected and approved by Luminous.
Hey guys, this is SunsFan and welcome to the official Dota Cinema Guide to Weaver. If you aren't familiar with this hero, you may want to watch the introduction we did for him at the corresponding link. Weaver is an agility carry hero who's extremely item dependent. Luckily for him, he has good survivability thanks to his general build and overall escapability. Skill build. There are two things that are consistent throughout all Weaver skill builds. You start out with one level of Shikuchi, and you always level time lapse at 6, 11, and 16. What you do in between is dependent on what the lane setup is. If you're free farming and have little worry of dying, then maxing out Geminate attack will be necessary. Do this by 7, with one level of Swarm at 4. Generally maxing Shikuchi second is standard, as the decrease in cooldown will make a world of difference. And then lastly, finish off Swarm, as you finally are starting to get some right-click damage to work with. If you're laning with very helpful allies, and are in the mindset of being ultra aggressive, then max Shikuchi first, and Swarm second. This will net you a lot of kills, but is quite mana intensive. Lastly, max Geminate attack. For the third build, if you're playing the suicide lane, or just plan to be defensive in general, max Shikuchi first, and Geminate attack second. Getting a level of Swarm at 4 is also a good idea for scouting purposes. But as you can guess, Swarm is the last priority for this build. Item build. For starting, get a Stout Shield to go along with basic regeneration and Iron Branches. These branches will be turned into a wand, which is very crucial for you to finish, as it's great against any mana burners. A lot of players leave their charges at 15 until a desperate situation arises. When used, it'll allow you to use one of your escape mechanisms without issue. It doesn't matter if you're going to be defensive or offensive in nature. Your boots of choice will always be Power Treads, as the stats and attack speed it brings cannot be matched by any other boots. But after saying this, I must mention that depending on the player's preference to rush certain items, it isn't too crazy to see them skip boots entirely until the first big item is completed. In the early stages, it may be a good idea to get a Ring of Aquila, as it'll give you some nice stats and mana regeneration. But generally speaking, Weaver players like to go at least one defensive item to start before going for any kind of damage. A Vanguard Cloak combination is pretty common against physical DPS, while if you're in need of more magic resistance, you'll bypass the Vanguard and go Hood with a Vitality booster. Another defensive first item that players like to get, especially if they're against any powerful single target spell, would of course be a Lincoln Sphere, which not only gives great mana regeneration, but that all-powerful spell block as well. After this, the de facto standard DPS item to follow suit is Radiance. This will give you a crap load of damage, which of course thanks to your Geminate attack will essentially double your DPS output, and the burn effect will synergize nicely with Shikuchi. After this, you can get a BKB if there are a lot of magical spells to be bypassed, or you can put that Vitality booster to good use and make a heart. For late game luxury, a Butterfly is amazing on Weaver as it provides a lot of attack speed and damage, as well as the evasion, which will make you that much more survivable. And although an MKB or Daedalus could technically be good damage for Weaver, just keep in mind that they will not proc on any Geminate attack. Gameplay. As we briefly mentioned in the skill build section, laning with Weaver can vary quite a bit, so using each one of your spells effectively will be crucial. Shikuchi is of course your main source of initiation and getaway. You can use this with ease to harass the enemy as well as last hit creeps. Just keep an eye on your mana, as you can be pretty starved throughout the early portions of the game. But one general tip for chasing and getting away is to go a different way in which they originally saw you. But getting to more specifics, when chasing a hero, it's a good idea to go past them. This will allow you to get a few more auto attacks in. Believe it or not, this is a very common mistake for new players. The good thing about Geminate attack is you normally don't need to think about it a whole lot. Keeping track of it on occasion could be a good idea just to gauge how much damage you'll be doing. But the only thing to keep in mind with this skill is that it will not proc when you attack out of your Shikuchi, so plan accordingly. Your Swarm ability, on the other hand, has many uses. Like mentioned earlier, you can use these to scout, as they will give you a decent 321 vision. This is also a great way to halt a push, as the creeps will be forced to aggro the beetles instead of moving on down the line. But more than anything, it will be used aggressively in order to weaken the enemy. Time Lapse is a very unique ultimate and is the main reason Weaver is so hard to kill in the later stages of the game. You'll not only regain your mana, HP, and position of 5 seconds ago, but more importantly will nullify any debuffs that were applied to you in this time as well. This is the main reason that Dust is just about useless against Weaver. And of course, Sentries can be somewhat ineffective because of his overall mobility. In teamfights, your job is to obviously deal as much damage as possible since you're going to be the main DPS on your team. Applying Swarm to as many enemies will be important, sure, but staying alive will be of the utmost importance. This is why your build is to go so tanky. The longer you evade death, the more damage you'll do, especially if you've picked up that Radiance. Friends and foes. Friends of Weaver are those in the laning stages that have some sort of CC or slow, since you have none yourself. Examples of this are Crystal Maiden, Lion, and Vengeful Spirit, which, let's not kid ourselves, are basically in every guide. They're just good, man, what can I say? Heroes that counter our Insect Friend are those that can drain his mana, which would include the likes of Anti-Mage and Lion, but more importantly, those that can reveal invisible heroes. Examples of this would include Slardar with his Amplified Damage, Bounty Hunter with his Track, and Bloodseeker with his Thirst, and well, Blood Rage too. Thanks for watching, guys, and please remember to subscribe to our YouTube. Also, a big thanks to Flawless and Luminous who helped create this guide. You can check them out at their YouTube channels, which are linked in the video description. Also, be sure to check out our website at dotacinema.com. My name is SunsFan, and we love you guys.